Thank you for tuning in. It's time for Heather and Kim's Culture and Coach Leadership Perspective.
It's so great to see you. I'm Heather Peterson and I am here with...
I'm Kim Richardson. How are you?
And we are excited to kick off an idea that we have been playing around with now for a while about sharing some quick tips, connecting the work of climate and culture with the work of coaching to equip leaders with quick nuggets that they can use and apply immediately in their work. So we are here today to kick off the Culture and Coach Leadership Perspective.
Yay! So when we're talking about the Culture and Coach Leadership Perspective, that's CLIP, we just want you to be able to have a quick moment to clip new knowing to your leadership tool belt. So we're going to always feature some great blog, TED Talk, chapter in a book that we've come across that we really feel encompasses culture and coaching for leadership. So, we have to begin with a blog from our great friends at Results Coaching Global. Heather and I were both trained by Vicki and Reba and Kathy on coach leadership. And with these uncertain times, this blog caught my eye. So the name of it is Leadership in Uncertain Times Calls for Sharp Focus on Interpersonal Skills.
And the great thing about that blog when Kim shared it with me is it's super short, but it is chock full of really great information. And what we know as leaders is that you more than ever are juggling multiple things, but it's so important that you continue to pour into yourself. And as Kim mentioned, clip new quick tools onto that tool belt. So I'm going to start by unpacking the Peterson culture model. Again, one of the things that we know that is so important in any role of leadership is your contributions to the climate and culture of your organization. So as you look at this model, it's two big components. These words often get used interchangeably, climate and culture. So this model helps you to see that when we talk about culture, what we're really talking about is the heart of your organization. Those values, the way that you do business, that's what your culture is. And the way you shape and nurture your culture is what creates your climate. What we know about climate is that it's ever changing. What it feels like on a Monday versus a Friday can be very different. But the more that leadership tends to and builds that positive culture, then our environment, especially during uncertain times, can weather those storms. So the blog that Kim shared, Leadership in Uncertain Times, really focused on the essential positive attributes of leadership. And what that caught my eye with empathy, strong and positive interpersonal skills, and social responsibility is those are essentially values. So as leaders, it's about how do we model our leadership attributes. And when you think about things like social responsibility and empathy, those are also social emotional skills. So that's the immediate connection that caught my eye of how those positive leadership attributes during uncertain times contribute to a positive climate and culture.
Thanks, Heather. It's a really great visual to be able to make the discernment between those two terms because we know how people get them mixed up. So I want to make the connection to the Richardson coach model. So the Richardson coach model is about the space between the two people. It doesn't matter what your title is. It doesn't matter what your role is, but we can be coach leaders and create space to think with another partner, space to learn, and help create space for the creativity part of the leadership work. So this blog talks about interpersonal skills, and interpersonal skills by definition is relating to other people and communicating with them. We won't be able to do that until we have created that space in order to allow the thinking, the learning, and the creating to happen. So the article that I love highlighted the fact that trust is a huge part of maintaining relationships that are compassionate and trusting, and those relationships have to be mutually satisfying. So when we think about those trust components of benevolence and respect and and competence and personal regard, integrity, that's the one that I left out, that we have to make sure that we are practicing and putting out all of those components of trust, because we don't know what other lens the other person is looking through to determine if they're going to trust us. So that is that space, and the interpersonal skills can't be practiced if that space isn't able to be created. So we just want to have this opportunity to really talk about this blog and share some nuggets with you so that you have some things in your mind to think about so that you can implement in your day-to-day practice. So Heather, I'm going to toss it over to you.
Yeah, so Kim, the thing I loved about the blog, and I loved what you just talked about creating that space of trust. One of the things that really resonated with me, again, not only did the blog highlight how we can make lists of positive attributes in leaders and negative attributes, but what it talked about when we really identify what our positive attributes are a leader is how they have to be present at all times. They can't be something that on the good days that, oh, it's easy for me to show empathy or to, exude my interpersonal skills, but more than ever during these turbulent or uncertain times, that if you're truly going to be a culture builder, that those leadership attributes have to shine through at all times.
And the fact that the blog talked about it's the interpersonal skills that we usually have in our mind that make or break a leader. I mean, no one's talking about how amazing the email was that my boss sent me or how incredible, the strategic plan was, but it's all about how they're making us feel, how the space for the communication, those interpersonal skills can make or break times like these in helping people even be able to get to the work.
Absolutely. And I love that notion of being a culture carrier during the good times and the bad times. And when you're a leader that carries the culture, it means that you're looking beyond just your day-to-day responsibilities and that you're actively spreading the values of the organization, recognizing it in others when it's in action, but more importantly, that they're modeling the way. We know that actions speak louder than words. You want to be able to talk the talk, certainly, of what those values are, but how do you bring those values to life as a leader?
Having been a person that worked under a leader that did not have interpersonal skills, you're walking around in your place of work anxious and working in fear versus having worked under a leader that is completely opposite. It doesn't matter that the work was the same, but I was able to feel challenged by that person and to be feeling confident about what the expectations were. So we can still have strong expectations, have high standards, and still be able to communicate effectively in that space of trust. So, the leadership connection that I'm making is just listening with empathy as leaders. And especially if you are operating in a role where you're able to have one-on-one conversations with the same person over multiple settings, how can we be present? You said that culture carrier, how can we be present? How can we listen with empathy? But then not just hold all that empathy, but then we have to release it so that we can also be whole and focus on our self-care.
Absolutely. And I love that. And the way that I would say that you clip this new nugget onto your belt, because we know that these uncertain times are continuing. Nobody's given us an end date. Nobody's given us the sense of here's when certainty will show itself again.
You sure? Because I need it. I need an end date.
I know. And so one of the things that, I would encourage you to do is to make sure that you're carving out time for reflection. And this doesn't take hours. It doesn't take, days to do this. It's something that you can just carve out a few minutes every day to reflect on your own leadership attributes and how they connect to building that positive culture. You can just write down a couple of those actions that you really want to make sure that you're modeling every day and that you're implementing every day. Because the key really in this, as Kim mentioned, is listening with that empathetic ear. But I think what both Kim and I would really challenge you to think about is how do you lead authentically? There is not one perfect model that says this is what a great leader is. It's about knowing your truth, knowing your strengths, and then the actions that support those.
And to add to that reflection, for my call to action for you is as you're listening and as you're reflecting, ask yourself, did I listen just for time to make my response or my fix-it solution in there? So reflect on how did I do on listening for empathy? How did I do on just listening to seek to understand, to care about the person and to understand versus my own agenda? So that you can sit down and say, did I listen for this person's struggles and discomfort and immediately feel uncomfortable and try to shoo it away? Or did I really allow myself to be present there? So thanks, Heather. That self-reflection is really going to be something helpful. And just set a timer, 10 minutes. You can write about it. You can just think about it. You can walk while you're doing it, whatever's going to be best for you. But if you don't set it aside, it won't happen.
Absolutely.
So put that to your tool belt.